Hello, and welcome back to the FEZ show on this fine Tuesday afternoon in the UK on the 23rd of June. We've got quite a bit to discuss today with the new calendar being released, which we'll go through that in a second, and the potential new Gen 3 rules, which, has had a bit of backlash, so we're going to go through that as well from Lucas Degrassi. But joining me to discuss all of this over the next half an hour is Edward Hunter and Jack Pickering. You alright, lads?
Good afternoon, Jack. Yeah, no, it has been a very, very busy weekend, and so yeah, I'm excited to get stuck into this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hey
and
guys. Oh, I thought I should introduce myself as well before we
oh,
move
go on
on.
then, Ed. I feel like you should introduce yourself. You just,
No,
go on.
you cut me off because I always let
Go on,
Jack go
Ed.
first, so that's the thing. Yeah. Anyway, I had a good weekend. I finally watched that And We Go Green film that you guys were going on about a while back,
What
and
did you think?
I thought it was okay. I thought I wasn't sure quite who it was supposed to be for. Was it supposed to be for racing fans, or was it supposed to be for people who are fancy run? I wasn't quite sure of that. I like pretty much everything about it, except when Leonardo DiCaprio came on, or well, bizarrely enough, when Hazel Southwell came on to tell me obvious things about racing, like, hey, pole position means you start at the front of the grid. Yeah, I know Hazel.
Yeah,
Hazel's
but
playing
she's
me. Why
probably
don't
been
you?
told. She's probably been told to say
I
that.
know that, but I already don't like her, so it's a bit annoying. But that's my problem, obviously.
To be fair, Ed's views are not the views of his employer.
Our good friends at Inside Electric, let's not forget.
They are good friends at Inside Electric. But anyway, enough about that. Jack, over to you really, because oh my god, you came up with an absolutely amazing idea of designing these tracks for the Berlin Street layout for these new tracks that we're going to have, and it's amazing that the Formula E drivers still don't know what they are. So you decided to let the fans have a go, and boy, oh boy, did we get a response. I think it was over 30 people, maybe even a bit more, maybe near 40, 50 odd that put in their little responses on Twitter. It was absolutely amazing to see. But Jack, it was your baby, it was your thing. So I said, Jack, you pick the top three, and we'll go through them today.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, I had this idea when I was in the bath last last week. I just thought, why not? Because they're doing three different layouts when we head back to Berlin in August. So and the thing is, like, over the time, I've designed like a few tracks. I mean, like when I was younger, I used to like draw around bits of paper and like, this is my circuit for today, Mum. She realised I was autistic early on. I thought this would be a fun thing, and thanks to everyone who got involved on Twitter, because yeah, as Jack said, we got over 30 responses, and to be honest, the majority of them were really, really good. There are quite a few of them that I really wanted to put in the show today, but I only was able to pick three. However, before I go through those three, you will now see on screen instead of my face my one. This is so this is the one that I designed as well, because I thought, well, it's my competition, I'll have a crack and then disqualify myself.
Show off.
um Thank you, Jack. This was my idea of a track. You've got heavy braking zones, and you got heavy braking zones. My favorite part about this is that I was able to do the advertising segments really well, and that is my greatest achievement there. But now you can see turns 5 through 9 got a nice little Magus Beckett section, because I'd quite like to see Formula E go through a Magus Beckett style section. But no, I was quite proud of that. You got some good braking zones for some good overtaking around Berlin. So
How long did that take you? How long did you sit on MS Paint doing this?
right, okay. So the layout took me about 30 minutes to complete, but then to actually do like the whole designing around it, putting the walls through the corners, and everything. That, I mean, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. That did take me up into, so I started on Wednesday, I finished on Friday, and this
Fair
is why
play.
I'm not going to pass second year at university. but but
I think we should get on with the top three. What's our top three?
Yes, as I said, thank you to everyone who participated, because I wanted to include about 10, but obviously we don't really have enough time for that. So I'm just going to whittle through what I think the top three were. So this is third place. You can see on your screen now. This was done by Sam Crawford. So well done, Sam. I did really like this circuit. You got a good heavy braking zone into one, then you got the switch back at 2, and then you see at turn 13, you've got the old Turkey turn 8, a bit like what we have at Kota now. Some nice long corners, some good heavy braking zones. I think going into 4 and going into turns 4 and 5, that would have been quite interesting to see how the drivers would have fared through there. But yeah, I did really like how this circuit would lay out, and I think it would be one of the longer calendars on the longer races on the calendar, if I can get the words out correctly.
I think Sam, though, he's got to work on his penmanship, compared to yours. Like,
I'm a little confused about his corner numbers because he's turned 13 into 4 corners. 13 A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Well, at least he's got his alphabet.
Yeah, it's kind of like yeah. If you think back to Turkey when it was on the F1 calendar, the turn 8 section, that was called turn 8, but it was actually turn 8 A, B, C, D as well. So technically, it is still one corner. And like my homage to Maggotts Beckett's, it's another homage to a brilliant F1 corner, but on a Formula E track. And so yeah, and it's one of these things that I'm sure quite a lot of people want to see, is these, because we can't go to, well, we don't really want to go to normal circuits, to go to Berlin and then maybe have these different layouts and incorporate some of like the best corners that there are in the world. I mean, like, you can't really do Eau Rouge on an airport, but still.
But no, I think it was a good attempt from Sam. Good attempt from Sam. So what did you have for second then? Go on then.
Okay, my second place comes from Gonzalo San Juan.
Top name.
Yeah, fantastic name. And yeah, it wasn't just the circuit I really like the presentation of this as well. I mean, like, obviously, as you saw from mine, I spent quite a lot of time on the presentation of that to make it look really nice. But yeah, I think this layout was really good. Oh, that turn. That turn, turning through turn 1 and breaking into 2, I think that would have been very interesting to have a first corner of a race like that, and you've got some lovely flowing corners.
It's got a bit of similarities to it's got some similarities to the other one in terms of that, okay, it's got a little bit of a hairpin that reminds me of Indianapolis, the old track layout, but then it goes back into that long left sort of sweeping, very similar to Sam's one, which is quite similar, and then it sort of has a similar end to what we had in season 1 Berlin Tempelhof, where it sort of does that little boom 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 section, which I'm sort of referring to at the top before it goes to the pit lane.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a nice one. Nicely presented. Got the grandstands
kind of a bus stop, I think, is what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think a bus stop chicane. Yeah, definitely. But I like the presentation. I like that he's color coded. He's got a key and everything. Grandstands. Like, you didn't have grandstands. He's one up on you here, Gonzalo.
Yeah.
And he's got walls. So, man,
I had walls.
I couldn't see.
Do you not
walls.
see the black outlines on mine? I mean, yeah.
No, I didn't realize that was walls. I thought that was the end of the track. No key.
I should have had a key.
Never mind. But Gonzalo.
But what could possibly top that, though?
Well, yeah, that was a good one.
Funny you say that, Ed. Yes. So we now move on to number 1. And my number 1 for this. Huge congratulations to Scalextricos. I hope I pronounced that right. I definitely didn't, but well.
Scalextricos.
It's like Argentinian version of Scalextrics.
Yeah.
Probably, and I'm very sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. But no, I did really like this one. It kind of reminded me a bit of Igora Drive in Russia, where we expect F1 might be going to when Sochi ends its deal in a few years' time. But I said that under my breath on purpose. But yeah, no, I really like the long run up to the first corner. I reckon that the first corner would have been good, but you have that kind of chicane to start off the lap. But then also kind of like the infield bit, kind of bit that I I really liked as well. And then the small little chicane before you come up to what I presume would be the final corner, because the last corner is a bit akin. I did really like that. Kind of harks back to Battersea Park in season 1 is what I thought of there. But no, I think this produces quite a lot of good overtaking zones, and
tough on energy management, I think.
it could be very tough on energy management. I mean, I do love energy management races, which is why I love Marrakesh. But we'll probably get onto a bit of that now. So well done to the 3 winners.
Yeah, I just want to
have more of you in there, but yeah, no, really well done to all of you who competed.
Yeah, I just want to extend my thanks. Obviously, it was so great to have so many of you on Twitter, sort of, post different designs. We've got some really funny ones as well, like banana shaped. People put Portimao and
somebody put JFK.
Someone put JFK. Okay.
That's another airport.
Yeah.
If I'm completely worried, if I'm completely honest, I was worried about an hour and a half in where the 3 options that we had thus far was someone had stuck Portimao onto it, someone had put Adria, and then someone had done a banana and JFK. So I thought, great, this has turned out well, but
they're putting a lot of thought into this. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did make me chuckle, so well done.
They did make us laugh. So, no, it was great to have so much fan engagement. So we really thank you for that. And obviously, for those who are listening on the Spotify podcast apps, I hope we described the corners enough. But if you want to have another look at it, go onto YouTube and they'll be there for you to actually see what the tracks look like. But let's move on then to some form of reaction, because, oh my God, did we have a bit of a weekend, which I was expecting at the calendar. I wasn't expecting the calendar to be released as late as it was, but hey-ho. But I'm going to run through the calendar now, because obviously there are some interesting things. We're starting in 2021, which makes sense, obviously, with coronavirus. Normally we start and have that crossover season. So we'll sort of discuss whether or not this is the beginning of the end of a crossover season of 2020 and 2021, and it just become whether it is going to be a 2021 season, but will next season, for example, be a 2021-22 season, or will we start in 22? So we'll kick off in Santiago on the 16th of January, and then Mexico on the 13th, and then the Diria race, which would have been in the end of the year, is moved to the 26th and 27th of February, and that's still a Friday. The 26th of February is still a Friday, so we'll talk about the implications from that in a second. Sanya will come back on the 13th of March, Rome 10th of April, Paris on the 24th, Monaco returns, and we'll talk about that in a moment, on the 8th of May, Seoul 23rd, then we got this TBC one, which is basically Jakarta, but obviously there are some issues around Jakarta, so fingers crossed they get that over the line, and that will be on the 5th of June. Berlin returns on the 19th of June, wonder what layout they'll pick, and the 10th will be of July is New York, and then we'll round out the season once again, fingers crossed, in Excel on the 24th and 25th of July. Ed, what did you make of that calendar?
Well, it's certainly a very interesting one. Of course, having Santiago open the season rather than Diria, which means I can finally watch the season open and live in all good conscience. But anyway, I think that's really cool. It's going to, obviously, as people have been saying, it's going to be the first FIA World Championship, the first official Formula E Championship to be given official World Championship status by the FIA. Which I was looking at an interview with Elizo Salazar, who's heavily involved with the Santiago Ypres in Chile, and he was saying that basically it's like how everyone remembers. Obviously, there were Grand Prix races before Silverstone 1950, but everyone remembers that as sort of the beginning of the World Championship. So he's thinking that next year Santiago will be a similar thing in Formula E history, which it seems a bit odd given that we've been going for so many years, but since 2014, of course. So.
I get its significant appeal, but I feel like they've lucked into it, because if everything was normal and there was no COVID-19, Jack, I have a feeling we'd be starting the season in Diria. And, I get what Salazar said in terms of, it will be, because, in the history books, the first FIA event will be at Santiago, so therefore, that could give Santiago some place on the calendar. It could become some historical reference in the future, and they may have lucked into it, but it doesn't matter if you luck into it or don't luck into it. At the end of the day, you are the first race of the official World Championship of Formula E.
Yeah, and yeah, I do agree. I think had we not been in the situation that we've been in, we would be starting in Diriyah in November. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't have done. I do have a few nitpicking issues with the calendar, which I'll probably go into in a bit. But no, Santiago's first race of the season. The one crushing thing for me is that it isn't a double header, and for me, having a double header to start the season is perfect because to start the season, you have this off season of, I think it will end up being about 4 or 5 months, and you have the first race back in Santiago, and then you have to wait 4 weeks for the next one, whereas the last few seasons when we have had double headers, it's been, yes, Formula E's back. Yes, we get to do it again tomorrow, and so yeah, it is a little bit sad. I do see the reason why that they've moved Diriyah in later into the season. However, I'm still a little bit confused about that because I had Diriyah in December last year, so I don't really see the reason why they couldn't have not had Diriyah kind of on that 16th of January date. But yeah, because Diriyah's been moved into that slot, we have lost Marrakesh, which is a shame because Marrakesh always produces relatively good racing. It's always tight on energy, which is fantastic. But yeah, it looks like a good calendar. Again, I'm a little bit confused by the positioning of that second Asian leg, and I'm not sure why it's not up there with Sanya, because surely that would make sense. But I'm sure that's something that you're going to come on to.
Yeah, we can talk about that now because I remember Tobias from eFormula D brought up the same thing when chatting to him. He's like, Formula E decided that, they wanted to be so green and have a calendar that was easy to fly to and so forth. And, when New York joined the calendar because they wanted it towards the end of the season, it sort of made that little boom boom. But, generally it sort of went around the globe quite well, Jack. And, they haven't done that, and it was a question this season. Obviously, we all asked, why on earth have you put Seoul and Jakarta bang in the middle of the European season? And they haven't picked up on that, and it's odd that they're continuing with that stance.
Yeah, so with Jakarta, that's one that I'm a little bit confused about. Admittedly, it doesn't say Jakarta on the list. We don't have official confirmation that it's Jakarta, but we're all kind of expecting it. The things with Jakarta, it's in Indonesia, which is near Malaysia. Malaysia in Putrajaya, even in November, used to be the hottest race of the season. And so what I don't get is, like Jakarta, we could probably go to Jakarta in February and it would be fine. So for me, that's more of a question of why have they done that? And the thing is, you can keep Sanya on that date, and then have Jakarta after it, and then head to Seoul, and then have Italy towards the end of April, and then put Paris in that slot after Monaco. It's not really rocket science to do, but yeah, no, I think they also had enough space for Marrakesh, I think, which is why I'm a little bit more disappointed that it's off the calendar. But no, I don't. I just don't see the reasoning why they.
Yeah, for me, I think you have to remember now. Formula E at the beginning, they had plenty of time to sort of organise a calendar to be as eco-friendly as possible, Ed. But I suppose it depends on the cities now, because the cities will say, okay, I don't know who's deciding when they can have a race. That's maybe a question we ask a gag when hopefully we get this interview across the line. Is who is deciding when they have the race? Are the cities deciding when they have a race, or are Formula E giving them a slot? Because if Formula E are giving them a slot, then it doesn't make sense. But if the cities are saying, look, we want to hold a race around here, and then maybe that's where Formula E's hands start to get tied.
Yeah, because you never know what sort of promoter agreements and how much money's tied up where and stuff like that. I did a bit of reading up on Jakarta actually, and I was reading the local newspaper they have there called the Jakarta Post, and it was basically there were a couple of reasons in there for why things weren't going so well in Jakarta because obviously it was on the calendar last year and due to COVID-19 had to drop off. And for this year, it was going to be the TBC date, and I think that's probably not going to happen now because a lot of the local, I think it's a local government or the legislative body in Jakarta was basically members of it was saying, look, we've been through a flood earlier in the year in January, and now COVID-19 has hit us pretty badly, and we need instead of spending money on our race fees, let's spend it on relief efforts, basically. And it makes sense from a sort of humanitarian viewpoint, definitely. But maybe it's just they want to postpone. They're not saying let's never hold it. They're saying let's postpone it to 2022, basically. So that as I understand it, maybe the Jakarta Post is inaccurate and just quoting specific people with specific agendas, but hopefully that gives some sort of insight into what's happening there. But, yeah.
Yeah, I know, and that was the whole problem with this year, and there was still problems with the flooding and whether or not it would go on even.
It didn't sound like the most
season.
popular event. Yeah, the mayor was getting a flack for it.
Very, very similar to Montreal. So when Montreal had a race, but if Jakarta for whatever reason doesn't go ahead, there's a massive chance there's lots of European cities that want to race, and going back to June 5th of June with the European, it's just, okay, I'll hop to South Korea for some reason, which could have been after Sanya, and then you could have just had a full European block. But at least it's, one sort of big flyaway, then a flyaway to Jakarta. But Jakarta is still expected to be on that calendar, and if Jakarta is to fall off, that would be the big news saying, hey, that 5th of June spot is up for grabs, and if any city feels like they could jump in and potentially grab it, then good for them. But Diriyah, what I want to talk about Diriyah is still on the Friday. So 26th. Obviously, that's their weekend. And Diriyah has forever, Jack, been talked about being a night race. Now, if Diriyah does become a night race on the Friday, remember it's 3 hours. I think it's 3 hours ahead from the UK time. So the race will kick off or start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So 12 o'clock UK time. So if they were to start that at 9 o'clock in the evening, yes, that's a bit late. But at least that's a 6 o'clock start in the United Kingdom on the Friday, people coming home, 7 o'clock Central European time, so most people would be home. I'm really sorry, United States of America and other parts of the world that obviously watch this show and watch Formula E. You'll be stuck at work either way because you either go into work in the morning or you'll be midway through your day. So I feel like a night race is the only way they could really go, because if they have it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, bang, where everyone's at work and people going to work and people are still asleep on the other side of the world, then, it's just a really awkward time to have a race.
Yeah, and we kind of saw that last year. I don't think it would be that late. I think they'd have it a little bit earlier in the evening than that, if I'm completely honest. But yeah, I think it has to be Friday and Saturday for Saudi Arabia, which is disappointing for the rest of the world who have their weekends on Saturday and Sunday. However, Friday and Saturday is how Saudi Arabia works. So yeah, and unfortunately, the rest of the world has to work around that. I think with a night race, you say it's been talked forever. We've only had it on the calendar for 2 years, so.
Well, they've always wanted it. They've always wanted it, though. Ever since they joined, they've always wanted a night race.
Yeah, and so I think it could be possible. I don't think that they'd start as late as about 9 o'clock in the evening, which would convert to 6 p.m. Hang on.
Yeah, it would be 6 p.m.
Yes, 6 p.m. UK time. I think they'd go a little bit earlier than that, but even then, I think I think having a race on a Friday is something that we need to get used to in Formula E, because that is the days that they. That's the days that Saudi Arabia do, but yeah, I think regardless, Diriyah has produced some cracking races the last couple of years. Not that Ed would know, but but yeah, and the track is the track is quite a nice track as well. So yeah, regardless of whether it's day or night, I'm sure it will be a spectacle, and I'd expect that it will return to its natural place as the season opener for the 2021-22 season.
Yeah, all I can say is that if Saudi Arabia won a night race, they're going to have to pay even more for it, and it's going to be a great look as well. Saudi Arabia, but trying to be eco-friendly while spending all that money and energy on putting lights out. Yeah.
To be fair, Saudi Arabia is probably the best place for a night race because the amount of heat they get, and if you were to do it via solar panels, you'd be able to power that race easily. I think you could easily do it. Because it's just so hot there and it's so hot all the time that you set up some solar panels weeks in advance. You'd be able to. I believe you'd be able to do it.
Just in case they run out on lap 27. We've run out of solar powers. Dario, get on the bike.
Yeah.
Anyway, was there any other things on the calendar you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, Monaco. That's what we'll talk about next. Good old Monaco. Got a little exclamation marker next to it. Well, not an exclamation mark.
Asterisk.
No!
Yes. But is this the first time? Are we going to see a full Monaco layout, Jack? I think that's what people want to see. That's what the drivers want to see. You know, we've got cars that are fast enough now to go round the full layout. It's got to be time to put Monaco on that actual layout.
In short, yes. I can't see a way that they're not going to do it. The only reason that we didn't have it in season 5 is because the teams vetoed it with a month or so left. But no, I think when we head back to Monaco next year, it will be the full layout, which is going to be fantastic. One thing that I quite like to see is maybe they move the attack zone into the tunnel. I think
that'd be too dangerous.
I'd like to see that. It might be too dangerous, but no, I think regardless, I think Monaco is a spectacle, and it'd be great to see the full circuit on Formula E because we've seen the should we call it the club circuit, but for the last 3 times that we've gone there, but no, we need to see them climb up the hill, go through Casino Square and down through Rascasse and Lowe's hairpin and into the tunnel. We need that.
But hopefully Formula E can show that Monaco can be exciting. Hopefully they can actually pull off some overtakes with some energy management races, especially going down into Nouvelle Chicane, and actually make Monaco look like a spectacle, especially with how Formula E is made. Right, so just moving on. Faster than F2. So, just a bit of housekeeping news. Obviously, not to get too much, because we talked about it in the last one, but René Rast has been confirmed at Audi, so was expected. It'll be interesting to see how he does over these next couple of races. But what I want to move on to, boys, is Gen 3, because the first sort of look ahead of Gen 3 has come out. Obviously, it's not officially been agreed yet. It was just a report by the race that came out, and Lucas Di Grassi has taken to that and said this is not the direction Formula E should be going to. And I read that report from the race, and it was very confusing because, you know, I think they even mentioned that the teams haven't agreed to what Formula E was stating and what Formula E wanted to do and the cost. So I still think Gen 3 stuff, you know, they've got an idea, but it wasn't. You know, I don't think it's been agreed by the teams yet, according to that report. But let's give you some of the stuff that came out of it. So max power. So we were talking about this a couple of days ago. About 350 kilowatts of max power during qualifying to the race will be 300 kilowatts. So that's a huge jump from 250, a whole 100 kilowatt jump in terms of power. Regen capabilities was 600 kilowatts. I'm still trying to work out exactly what that means. But this was the interesting thing that came out for my eyes, was that this fast charging technology, they want this Gen 3 to have this fast charging technology and lead to like a 30-second style pit stop where they could basically recharge the battery. So we were talking about, you know, batteries either racing for an hour. I was like, what does that mean? Do they want to race for an hour and a half now? So I thought that was very interesting. What did you make of the Gen 3 stuff that came out?
Yeah, what I found interesting at the races report is that they suspected that Williams Advanced Engineering would be making were the most likely candidates to win the tender to make the Gen 3 battery. which is interesting because McLaren Automotive currently make the Gen 2 batteries. So I discounted Williams Advanced Engineering because that Williams had sold them off, obviously, not too long ago. And I was worried about maybe they haven't got the same manufacturing capability. But it sort of makes sense if they're doing this fast charging thing, where the batteries wouldn't need to carry quite as much charge as they currently do in Gen 2, perhaps, if Williams specialise in making slightly smaller, more reliable batteries like they did for Gen 1. So that interests me. Degrassi isn't happy with it. I don't think he would be happy with whatever it was because he has some pretty ambitious ideas. But he, I don't know, I think the race also sort of, there across on Peter McCall looked at his proposed Gen 3 plans and sort of said, well, you want to do all this sort of stuff, but it doesn't really add anything. I think that's what they were saying. Like, they're saying, like the Gen 2 Evo body rack, for example, they felt it was more style over substance. So it's interesting. A lot of people with different views. So we'll have to see how, whether getting the teams to agree unanimously with the Gen 3 rules, I think that's going to be a big uphill struggle. It's going to be interesting to see how Agag and company and Jamie Rugel all manage that and get all those manufacturers and the small teams to agree on a conclusive vision.
Yeah, for me, Jack, in terms of what I think we should ask Agag is about this fast charging thing, and because that was what we've been discussing now for the last couple of episodes. More power, which looks like we're getting more power, or an hour race, when we don't think we should go past an hour race. But with this fast charging thing, there's the potential to go past an hour and, race on for an hour and a half. So, and really and truly what we got from that report didn't really explain, where Formula E wanted to go with the direction of the sport. So I think that's a big question that's left unanswered.
Yeah, this is something that we've speculated about on the show before. Personally, I'd rather have quicker cars and keep it under an hour. I think, we don't really want it more than an hour because then we just look like a kind of like F1 copy.
Not really.
I think that if it stays at an hour, I think that's the perfect length for Formula E. I think that if we go quicker and if we can go a lot quicker, and then they have a pit stop midway through the race. And the thing is, if they've saved more energy, then they don't have to be stationary wireless charging for that much longer. But no, I think this is something that I think we're definitely gonna have to put to Alejandro. But yeah, no. Regardless, I think Gen 3 is gonna be exciting.
It's going to be very exciting, and the main reason why Degrassi is so upset is the cost. He said, this way is going to be very costly. He's worried about manufacturers leaving the sport because, it's going to drive up so much cost and so much technology. And he says, and we're planning for technology that we don't even know exists yet or is ready yet. And, so he thinks that they're going in the wrong direction. He thinks that, the car should be four-wheel drive. Build them four-wheel drive.
Because that's not expensive at all, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but the same reason, it doesn't mean you have to he says then if you do that, then you don't have to completely redesign the car if the technology is completely different when we turn up in Gen 3. So I get his arguments, to be fair, and the cost is a huge. I know we discuss cost a lot, but I think that's huge.
Yeah, I guess Lucas has an eye towards keeping the costs down, but also road relevancy, which is why he brings up stuff like four-wheel drive. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I think Lucas also said some interesting stuff about the regen, because you mentioned it's been up to 600 kilowatts, I think that's per hour, the regen, which is definitely more than we have at the moment, which I think is somewhere like 300, 400, if I remember correctly, but I'm probably wrong on that. But yeah, I think Lucas also said that he didn't think the regen would, because that would take away a lot of the energy management side of it if it's too efficient, the regen. So yeah, I sort of understand definitely from a cost point of view, but I think the other side of it is you need to keep the manufacturers on board, and you need to actually, like you keep saying, you need to be pushing that sort of technology forward. And so yeah, there's definitely a compromise to be had. It'd be interesting to see whether Lucas eventually gets his way or not, because he does have quite a big sway in the series at the moment, as well as being, CEO of Robo Race, whenever that gets going. But yeah, I can understand where he's coming from. I disagree on a few things, but yeah, that's my view.
I think, Jack, final thought on this is, you know, it sounds like Formula E have gone too much too soon. Even when we were discussing it, right? Let's go back to when we were discussing it. We were like, okay, for Gen 3, really and truly, you got one decision to make. Faster cars or slightly longer races, and you do that with the battery and you try and, and that's what you do for Gen 3. Whereas, they're trying to go faster cars, longer races, they're trying to throw everything at it. So I think that's where, some teams and drivers are a bit like, nah, this is a bit too much.
Yeah, that does make sense. Personally, I go faster cars over longer races, but I think that's because I'm a racing fan at heart. So but yeah, no, I think if they do get everything that they want to running, it's going to be absolutely fantastic to watch. But I think it would have been fine if it had everything this year gone to plan and not been whatever's happened in this in this world with everything, but it would have been absolutely fine. But because of the whole pandemic that we're in right now, they should have maybe let it go for maybe focus on one thing, then do the next thing in a couple of years after. And
like a Gen 3 Evo thing concept.
Yes,
maybe, potentially.
That is what I do.
All right, boys, we are incredibly running out of time, so thank you so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed your company.
Thank you.
No worries, Jack. It was a pleasure.
Remember, just a few housekeeping links before we go. Twitch link will be streaming on Wednesday, I think, so tomorrow. So come along for that as we try and get Tesla back into Formula E after being relegated. Discord links as well there, so make sure to hit on those. Please remember to like and subscribe. You have been watching the FEZ show. We will see you on Thursday. Goodbye.